Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everybody, my name is Miss Arina and today we are going to talk about the preparation for your final test. And for your final test, there are three kinds of material that you can study. The first is degree of comparison. You can look at this. There are type of the degree of comparison. The first is positive degree, the second is comparative degree, and the third is superlative degree. Well, we'll talk about the first. The first is positive degree. You can look at this example. This is apple. There are two apples, A and B. If you want to talk about positive degree, so you have to add s before the adjective and s after the adjective. For example, like apple A as small as apple B. The second is comparative degree. Like in the first, there are two kinds of apple, but the first apple is small and the second apple is bigger. Yeah. And in the comparative degree, the rule is you have to add er in the adjective. Like, for example, like apple A is smaller than apple B. If the adjective is one syllable, so you have to add er, like here. The apple A is smaller than apple B. But if the adjective is two syllables, for example, like beautiful or handsome, so you have to use more. For example, like Yusuf is more handsome than Ahmad. Yeah. So in the adjective that have two syllables, so you have to add more. And the third one is superlative degree. The superlative degree is you have to prepare the apple A, B, C. There are three of kind apples, but in the superlative you have to add est if the adjective is one syllable, and you have to add mos if the adjective is two or three syllables. For example, here apple A is smaller than apple B, but apple B is smaller than apple C, and the apple C is the biggest one, right? The apple A, B, C. The apple A is smaller than apple B. Apple B is smaller than apple C, and apple C is the biggest one here. If the adjective is one syllable, so you have to add est. But if the adjective more than two syllables, so you have to use mos, the mos. For example, like Yusuf and Ahmad and Zain. So in the three boys, the Yusuf is the most handsome than Ahmad or than Zain. I think that's enough for degree of comparison. So you can read your book again to this material. Thank you. Well, everybody, we are continue to the next material. The next material is about simple present tense. You have to know that simple present tense is described about habits, unchanging situations, general traits, and fixed arrangement. Here is the form of simple present tense. The first is about positive form. The second is about negative form. And the last is about interrogative form. Before we talk about the form, you have to know about the subject in English. There are 7 subjects in English. The first is I, you, they, we, he, she, and it. Okay, let's restart the first form. Positive form. Here is subject plus verb 1 plus object. The second is negative form. Here is subject plus do or does plus not plus verb 1 plus object. Remember, if the subject is I, you, they, we, so you have to add do. And if the subject is he, she, it, so you have to add does. And the last is interrogative form. Do or does plus subject plus verb 1 plus object. And don't forget to add interrogative. And here is the example. The first example is about positive form. You is a subject. Read is as a verb. Newspaper every morning is an object. Yeah, here is the example. You read newspaper every morning. There are 2. The second is Yusuf as a subject. Reads as a verb. Newspaper every morning as an object. Remember guys, if you have to add as because the subject is Yusuf. Yusuf is the pronoun of he. So you have to add as. Okay, so the differences between first and second, you have to add as. 1. The subject is he, she, or it, or the singular one. Okay. Next, the second example is negative example. You have to put don't and doesn't. What is the differences? The differences is you have to put don't here if the subject is you, I, they, and we. And you have to add doesn't here because the subject is he, she, and it. For example, here is Yusuf. Okay, so the example here is you don't read newspaper every morning because the subject is you, so you have to add don't. The second, Yusuf doesn't read newspaper every morning you have to add doesn't here because the subject is Yusuf or the pronouns of he. Okay, let's talk in the last one. Here is interrogative example. The example is, do you read newspaper every morning? Why? You have to add do here because the subject is you. So you have to use do. Do you read newspaper every morning? Next, you have to add does here because the subject is Yusuf. Does Yusuf read newspaper every morning? Yeah, I think that's enough, so you can read again to remember it. Thank you. Okay, everybody, this is the last material of your final test, adverb of frequency. This is the table of frequency. Here is the frequency and here is the adverb of frequency. If you do action 100%, so you have to use always. If you do the action 90%, so you have to say usually. If you do the action 80%, so you can say normally or generally. If you do action 70%, so you can say often. If you do action 50%, so you can say sometimes. If you do action 30%, so you can say occasionally. If you do action 10%, so you can say seldom or rarely. If you do action 5%, so you can say hardly. And last, if you nothing do something, so you have to say never. Yeah. And I want to tell you about the examples of adverb of frequency. Yeah. The example is for always. The example, I always wake up at 3 p.m. every morning. Because you do 100% the action, so you can say always. The other examples of never, for example, you never leave the pray, so you can say never. I never forget to pray every day. Yeah, I think that's enough for the adverb of frequency. And this is the last material for your final task. And you have to read again for your material. And good luck. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.